It's a seductive little voice, whispering that good enough is just that. Enough. It's harmless, really. That gentle pull toward the easy road, the well-worn path everyone stumbles down. But that's the trap, isn't it? That's the cruel little game. Mediocrity doesn't announce itself with grand gestures or flashing lights. No, it slips in quietly, like a shadow, like a slow poison, convincing you that greatness is a fool's errand, that chasing more will only bring pain. So people settle. They step back. They let the fire die a slow, quiet death, trading their ambitions for safety, their potential for a life that's small, predictable, comfortably numb. And while they shrink, mediocrity thrives. It's patient, that twisted little whisper. It feeds on those moments of doubt, those tiny fractures in your resolve. Every time you choose comfort over challenge, every time you silence that hunger for something more, it grows stronger, tighter, a noose pulling you down into its grasp. People like to think they're safe, that there's no harm in taking the easy path, that they'll simply get by. But what they don't realize is that mediocrity is a trap of their own making. By the time they see the bars, they're already locked inside. And the sad thing is, most won't even try to escape. They'll settle, watching the days slip by, wondering where the fire went, too afraid to admit they let it die themselves. But there's a darker side to mediocrity, one most people don't dare to look at. It's not just about settling, it's about betrayal. Betrayal of everything you could have been. Betrayal of every spark, every ounce of potential that's suffocated under layers of fear and laziness. Mediocrity turns you against yourself, twisting your ambitions into distant dreams, hollow fantasies you're too scared to reach for. And once it takes hold, it eats away at you, bit by bit, until there's nothing left but a shadow, a shell of someone who once had fire, who once knew what it meant to want something more. It's a thief in the night, but the irony, you're the one handing over the keys, giving up piece by piece, until mediocrity's all that's left. People think they're too good for mediocrity, that it's something that only happens to others, the weak-willed, the lazy. But mediocrity has a strange way of sneaking up on even the strongest. It wraps itself in excuses, in rationalizations, telling you that rest is necessary, that waiting for the right moment is smart. It's a trickster, disguising itself as wisdom, as caution, all while sinking its claws deeper. By the time you see it for what it is, it's too late. You're knee-deep in compromise, in little bargains you made with yourself, everyone a step further from who you were meant to be. And so, people drift, wondering why their lives feel small, empty, never realizing that the enemy was there all along, hiding in their own reflection. And yet, the saddest part of it all is how willing people are to let mediocrity win. They'll wave their little white flags, surrendering without a fight, all for the sake of comfort, of security. The fire, the hunger, it's there, somewhere, buried under years of excuses, of fear. But it's easier to ignore, isn't it? Easier to pretend it's gone, that the desire for greatness was just a phase, a foolish dream. People look around at their lives, at the cages they've built brick by brick, and tell themselves this is enough, that wanting more is selfish, reckless. But that's the game mediocrity plays, convincing you that survival is all you need, that existing is the same as living. And once you believe it, it's over. You're a willing prisoner, chained by nothing more than your own lack of courage. But there's something almost darkly funny about it. watching people let themselves rot, surrendering bit by bit, without ever realizing the cost. They'll sit in their comfortable little boxes, their safe, controlled lives, and wonder why they feel empty, why there's this gnawing sense of loss that eats at them in the quiet moments. They'll look to distractions, to fleeting pleasures, hoping to fill the void, but it's never enough. Mediocrity is a hunger that can never be satisfied, a pit that only grows deeper the more you ignore it. And so, people spend their lives in quiet desperation, never understanding that the prison was never real, that the bars were just illusions, built from the pieces of a dream they let slip away. And while they sink, those who dare to fight, those who resist, burn brighter, casting shadows that make mediocrity retreat, even if just for a moment. These are the ones who refuse to settle, who choose pain over numbness, struggle over stagnation. They're the outcasts, the rebels, the ones society sneers at. But there's something beautiful in their defiance, something pure in their refusal to let the fire die. Opportunity, a fickle, fleeting thing, slipping by like shadows in the night, often unnoticed until it's far too late. People think there will always be another chance, another door waiting to open. But that's the trap, the silent promise that keeps them blind, deaf to the whispers, the warnings. They walk through life as if time itself bends to their convenience, as if opportunity is a patient thing that will wait, unchanging, until they're ready. But opportunity is not a loyal servant. It's a ruthless creature, moving without pause, slipping through cracks, vanishing the moment you look away. And the more you ignore it, the quicker it slips from your reach, leaving you with nothing but a hollow echo of what could have been. The signs are always there, little sparks in the dark, flashing like dying stars, waiting to be seen. But people turn a blind eye, convincing themselves they're too busy, too distracted, too preoccupied to notice. They think opportunity will announce itself with fanfare, with drums and fireworks, that it'll knock politely and wait for them to open the door. But opportunity rarely comes with fanfare. It's quiet, subtle, often cloaked in the mundane, hidden in the shadows of everyday life. And those who look away, who ignore those subtle hints, who refuse to act, they'll find themselves standing in the ashes, wondering how it all slipped away. The signs are there for those willing to see, but only if they're awake, only if they're watching. But that's the twisted joke of it all. People don't want to see the signs. They're terrified of them, because to see means to act, to make a choice, to risk. Ignorance is comfortable, a warm, sleepy place where nothing changes, where life rolls on without confrontation, without discomfort. Opportunity requires courage, demands a kind of raw fearlessness, a willingness to leap before the mind catches up. And so, people stay blind, choosing comfort over courage, silence over the call of the unknown. They close their eyes, tell themselves they're waiting for the right moment, the perfect timing. But opportunity doesn't wait for the timid, the hesitant. It's a fire, a spark that burns only for a moment before vanishing into smoke. And by the time people open their eyes, all that's left is the memory of warmth, a ghost of something they'll never touch again. There's a dark beauty in lost opportunity, a kind of bitter lesson that scars itself into the soul. People remember the chances they didn't take, the paths they ignored, more vividly than anything else. Those missed moments, they haunt, lingering in the mind, filling the silence with what-ifs and might-have-beens. There's no escape from it, no running from the weight of opportunities ignored. The world is filled with ghosts, people wandering through life, haunted by the shadows of choices they were too afraid to make. And that's the price of ignorance, of hesitation, a life filled with echoes, with reminders of everything that was left behind. In the end, those ghosts are all that's left, a constant reminder of the price paid for looking away. People like to tell themselves there will always be another chance, another door, another way forward. But the harsh reality is that some doors close forever. Some moments never return, no matter how much you wish, no matter how much you regret. The world doesn't wait, doesn't offer second chances to those who hesitate. It moves on, ruthless and indifferent, leaving behind those too weak to grasp what was in front of them. And once it's gone, once that door closes, it stays closed, locked tight with no key, no way back. People can tell themselves, whatever lies, make them feel better. But the truth remains. A missed opportunity is a permanent loss, a wound that never quite heals. The cruelest part? The world doesn't care. It watches, indifferent, as people stumble, as they miss chance after chance, content in their complacency. It doesn't stop, doesn't wait for anyone to catch up. Opportunity keeps moving, dancing just out of reach, laughing at those who thought they had all the time in the world. And while they're busy looking away, telling themselves comforting lies, the world shifts, changing forever, leaving them stranded in the past, clinging to memories of things they'll never have. The world is a cold place for those who ignore the signs, for those who think they're immune to time, to loss. It takes, and it takes, and it never gives back. Opportunity is a mirror, reflecting the courage, the strength, or the weakness of those who look into it. And for most, that reflection is too much to bear. They look away, afraid of what they see, afraid of what it means to seize the moment, to make a choice that cannot be undone. They fear the responsibility, the weight of decision, and so they let it slip by, pretending they're better off without it. Mental weight, an invisible burden, dragging people down, bloating their minds with unnecessary noise, untrained thoughts, and weak convictions. Most wander through life, their minds sluggish, heavy with distractions, with worries they don't know how to handle, bogged down by an endless loop of indecision and doubt. People pride themselves on their intelligence, their cleverness, but intelligence without discipline is a hollow shell, a mind drowning in its own weight. They carry these burdens, convinced they're deep thinkers or just stressed. But the weight is nothing more than the consequence of an undisciplined mind, a mind that's never learned to sharpen itself, to cut away the useless and focus on what truly matters. They're mentally overweight, stumbling through life, too bloated with nonsense to ever act with clarity, with strength. And at the root of every problem they face, a lack of skill. People love to make excuses, love to talk about how complicated their issues are, as if they're unique, as if their burdens are somehow heavier than anyone else's. But all problems, at their core, boil down to one thing: a skill you haven't mastered, a gap in ability you refuse to confront. Relationships crumble, not because of fate, but because you lack the skill to understand, to communicate, to maintain them. Careers falter, not because of bad luck, but because you lack the skill to adapt, to push forward, to dominate. Even personal struggles, the inner wars people love to romanticize, are nothing more than a lack of skill in mastering your own mind, in reigning in your thoughts, your impulses. Skill is power, and without it, you're just a prisoner of circumstance, lost and helpless, fumbling in the dark. People are quick to blame the world, to point fingers at everyone but themselves. They talk about stress, about the pressures of life, but in reality, they lack the skill to handle even the smallest challenges. Their minds are weak, fat with excuses, with justifications for why they're not where they want to be. They cling to these excuses like lifeboats, convinced that they're victims of some grand, uncontrollable fate. But fate has nothing to do with it. Life is nothing but a series of challenges, and every challenge demands a skill. Those who master their skills rise, those who ignore them sink, weighed down by the very problems they refuse to address. And as they drown, they have only themselves to blame, their cries for help muffled by the weight of their own weakness. It's almost comical, watching people flail, overthinking every step, burdened by worries that are nothing but illusions. Their minds, so full, are empty of purpose, of clarity, of focus. They're like athletes who've let themselves go, lost to indulgence, to apathy. They've forgotten what it means to train, to push, to refine. Mental strength isn't some innate gift, some divine trait. It's a skill, a blade that must be sharpened, honed to a fine edge. And those who let their minds grow dull, who feed on distractions, on petty worries, are nothing more than shadows, weighed down by their own lack of discipline. In their weakness, they become pawns, easily controlled, easily led. For a mind that is overweight is a mind that will never truly be free. And in their struggles, in their complaints, lies the real joke. They see their problems as something external, something to be solved by a change of scenery, a new relationship, a different job. But the problem is within, festering like a rot, a lack of strength, of discipline, of skill. They drag their bloated minds from one solution to the next, never realizing that each new place, each new face, will only reflect the same weakness, the same weight. Because wherever they go, they take themselves with them, take their untrained, undisciplined minds along, and wonder why nothing ever changes. The answer stares back at them from every mirror, cold and unforgiving. A reminder that every problem they face is of their own making. People talk of self-improvement, of growth, but few ever truly understand what it takes. Improvement isn't a gentle climb. It's a war, a relentless battle against the self, against the weight of comfort, of indulgence. The mind, left unchecked, becomes lazy, bloated, feeding on every distraction, every petty indulgence it can find. And the only cure, the only path forward, is discipline, is skill, a brutal, unforgiving regimen that cuts away the weakness, the excess, leaving only what's necessary, what's sharp, what's strong. But most don't have the stomach for it, don't have the courage to face the mirror and admit they've let themselves go, that their minds have grown soft, weak. They'd rather stay in the comfort of their excuses, sinking deeper into mediocrity with every passing day. A mind trained, a mind sharpened, that's the only escape. The only way out of the weight, the only way to cut through the fog, is to embrace skill, to treat every problem as a challenge. Time, the one thing people think they own, the one illusion they cling to, believing they control it, that it bends to their will. But time is no ally. It's a ruthless force, slipping through fingers, vanishing like smoke, indifferent to anyone's plans. Those who waste it, who let it drift by, will find it's not waiting for them. Build for yourself, or time will be given away, bartered for scraps, assigned to tasks that feed someone else's ambition, someone else's dream. For every hour you don't claim, there's someone waiting to take it, someone who knows how to turn your wasted minutes into their own success. And that's the dark truth most ignore. If you don't seize time, it's not yours to keep. People think they'll find time, eventually, that it'll show up like a gift, waiting when they're ready. But time given to someone else is lost, buried in the endless cycle of another's goals, another's profit, working for someone else's dream, another's legacy. It's the graveyard of potential, the place where ambition goes to die, traded away bit by bit, day by day. There's a kind of quiet horror in it, in watching people spend their lives building what they'll never own, investing everything into foundations that belong to someone else. They convince themselves it's temporary, a stepping stone, but each day spent in service of another's empire is another day lost to their own. The irony is that most people start with dreams of their own. They imagine they'll rise, that they'll create something lasting, something that bears their own name. But somewhere along the way, they become cogs, trapped in the machine of someone else's making. They trade their dreams for a steady paycheck, for stability, for the illusion of success. They let their time be bought, sold, parceled out in hours, and every task, every project, is just another brick in a wall that keeps them from their own potential. The chains are subtle, invisible at first, but with every passing day, they grow tighter, pulling them further from the life they once imagined. It's a slow death, this surrender to someone else's vision. People don't notice it at first. They tell themselves they're just paying their dues, that their time will come. But time doesn't wait, and neither do the dreams they once held. They watch the years slip by, always planning, always waiting for the right moment. But the moment never comes. Each hour given away is another piece of themselves they'll never get back, another fragment of their potential, buried in the graveyard of forgotten ambition. And by the time they realize it, they're too deep, too embedded in the routine, too invested in the life they've built for someone else. Escape becomes a distant fantasy, a dream they've long since given up on. People tell themselves that building for someone else is temporary, that they'll make time for their own plans soon. But time is a thief, and it's patient, relentless, taking bit by bit until there's nothing left. The world has no mercy for those who wait, no kindness for those who hesitate. Build for yourself, or be consumed, swallowed by the endless demands of others. Because while you wait, while you work for another's dream, your own grows weaker, fading into the background, a distant memory of a life that might have been. And in the end, all that's left is regret, a hollow ache for what could have been, for the legacy that was never built, the life that was never lived. There's a dark irony in watching people work themselves to the bone, pouring everything they have into something that will never be theirs. They give their time, their energy, their soul, all in service of a goal that benefits everyone but them. They become servants to ambition that isn't their own, slaves to dreams they'll never see realized. And all the while, their own potential withers, starved of the time, the focus, the commitment it needs to grow. It's a quiet tragedy, this surrender of self, this slow erosion of individuality. Because once it's gone, once they've given everything, there's nothing left to build with. No time to reclaim, no dream to resurrect. And the cruelest part? The world rewards this sacrifice, praises it as loyalty, as dedication. People wear their sacrifice like a badge of honor, convinced they're noble, that their hard work will be rewarded. But loyalty to someone else's dream is just another name for surrender, for the quiet death of ambition. Every hour spent building for someone else is an hour stolen from your own life, your own goals. And while the world applauds, while it praises dedication, it silently robs you, taking your potential, your time, your future, leaving you with nothing but the hollow satisfaction of a job well done for someone else. Building for someone else isn't just a loss of time, it's the death of self, the burial of everything that makes you unique, powerful, driven. People become shadows of the ambitions they serve, losing themselves in the process. People move through life like sleepwalkers, trapped in a silent trance. Every step dictated by systems they didn't create, goals they didn't choose. They think they're in control, that their dreams and aspirations are theirs alone. But from the moment they could understand language, society has been shaping them, molding them into obedient shadows. As children, they were handed a set of goals: be good, go to school, work hard, retire quietly. And like machines, they internalized these commands, letting them become the guiding force behind every action, every decision. They practice these commands until they're automatic, routine, until one day they wake up and wonder where the years have gone, why they feel so empty, so unfulfilled. But by then, it's too late. They're prisoners in their own minds, chained to a system that cares nothing for their happiness. These goals didn't arise from within. No, they were injected into the mind when it was still soft, impressionable, when it was easy to shape. Society hands out its scripts, like a doctor handing out pills, convincing people that these goals are essential, that they're the only path to success, to worth. And people swallow them without question, letting them burrow deep, letting them grow roots that stretch into every corner of their minds. These goals become the silent masters, steering every thought, every action. People start to live not by choice, but by reflex, by a set of commands running on autopilot. Every dream, every hope is filtered through this lens, through the need to conform, to stay within the lines. And by the time they realize it, they're nothing more than echoes, reflections of a system that feeds on their obedience. People like to think they're unique, that they're different, that somehow they're above the masses. But look closer, and you'll see the same patterns, the same routines, the same narrow perspectives. They were taught to go to school, get a job, save for a future they might never live to see. They think they're building lives, but all they're really doing is walking a well-worn path, one that countless others have walked before. They've been programmed, conditioned to see the world in a way that keeps them docile, compliant. The thoughts they think, the dreams they chase, are all part of a design that was never theirs. And so they march, heads down, following a path that leads nowhere, convinced they're making choices when all they're doing is following orders. The mind is a powerful machine, a structure of systems built to adapt, to learn, to survive. And when those systems are aligned with a purpose, a goal, the results are remarkable. Just look at a child learning to walk, stumbling, falling, but never stopping, driven by the instinct to stand, to move. The mind becomes a well-oiled machine, learning from mistakes, refining itself until that goal is achieved. But when society hands out goals, the process is twisted, corrupted. The mind becomes a slave, not to a purpose of its own choosing, but to a set of commands that were planted from the outside. And with every repetition, with every passing year, those systems grow stronger, more efficient, until the person is no longer in control. The real tragedy is that people rarely realize this. They're so caught up in the routine, so numbed by the repetition, that they never stop to question the script. They practice the same habits, think the same thoughts, see the same limited world, and each day their minds grow more rigid, more entrenched in these patterns. They become efficient machines, perfectly tuned to achieve goals that mean nothing, that serve only to keep them compliant, complacent. Every day they practice. Every day they refine these skills, reinforcing the system that keeps them bound, until it becomes impossible to break free. And by the time they wake up, if they ever do, they're surrounded by walls they built with their own hands, trapped in a cage they never even saw being built. Success, real success, is not something that can be planned or forced. It's a state of mind, a set of systems that function effortlessly, that flow without resistance. Successful people aren't struggling to achieve. They're simply living, their actions aligned with a purpose that resonates from within. They've built systems that feed into each other, creating a harmony that drives them forward. But most people will never reach this state because they're too busy practicing a routine that was never theirs. They're caught in a machine they don't understand, grinding away for goals they didn't choose. And every day, they grow more efficient, more skilled at fulfilling the dreams of others, while their own dreams rot, neglected, forgotten. The choice is simple. Live on autopilot, letting the system dictate every step, or break free, take control, build something that's yours. Because if you don't, if you let society keep steering, mediocrity will win at the expense of your soul. Wake up.